So good morning, everyone. My name's Matt. I'm from Ready Tech Go. We are a technology training company, and got some great information today for you on buying a computer or device. So I'm going to take you through just a whole lot of things you should think about if you're looking at buying a device, why you want to do it, and all that sort of stuff. So let's talk about, we're going to look at budget and getting the best price. Purpose, what are you getting this computer or tablet or smartphone for? Sometimes people go, oh, I need to have the best of the best. And they go out and buy a top of the range gaming computer. And then all they do with it is email and looking at a couple of websites, which is spending a whole lot of extra money on something they don't need. It's essentially like buying a Ferrari when really all you need is a Toyota. And so when it comes to technology, sometimes it's just best to buy the Toyota when, the Ferrari sometimes can be a bit overkill. So size and weight, how big is the device you're wanting? Do you actually have some issues with mobility or strength or something like that? A laptop might be too heavy for some people. A desktop computer might take up too much room, whereas a tablet or a smartphone might be that perfect device. Maybe a full-size tablet or a mini-sized tablet are often really great options for people who just want to do email and look at websites and maybe watch the odd movie or thing like that. So yeah, what are we looking at? Do we want something heavy, something big? How fast does it need to be? Are you, again, looking at for that Ferrari because you need that speed? But what if you don't need the speed? Well, maybe, again, ramping it back to the Toyota and going for something that's a little bit slower, which might be a year or two old, but will still work fine for the next, 6, 7, 8 years, that sort of thing. That'll keep you going. Storage options. How much room do you need? Are you going to be storing lots of photos on your device or little videos? Well, if you're going to do lots of photos and videos and keep them on your devices, then you're going to need to look at having a fairly big hard drive or the ability to connect an external hard drive to save to there, or maybe even think about using a cloud storage service to save your photos and videos up to the cloud as well. You've got a couple of different options to think about. This is why it's always good to make a little list of things you need to think about and start to work your way down to a sort of an endpoint and decide on what you'd like. The environment and location is also really important because there's nothing like putting a hot computer in a hot room. Really, you want to make sure that where you are using your device, if you're, say, using a computer, you want to have it in the study, somewhere where there's a good amount of light, but it's not going to get a very hot room, because a hot machine is not a happy machine. Particularly with desktop and tower computers, they don't like being hot, and laptops tend to get very hot as well. And you can have laptop stands which help the laptop cool off, but really thinking about where you are, because you need to also make sure that you're also sitting comfortably and ergonomically as well, because if you're not sitting correctly, you could actually be causing yourself an injury over time. And finally, aesthetics. Now, I know a lot of people sort of think, oh yeah, the color doesn't matter, but it does matter. It might be a huge thing to you. You actually really do want to have your computer to fit in with your decor. You might be one of those people, or you may simply want to be able to put stickers on it or covers, something that fits in with more who you are. Well, you can actually consider the aesthetic side of things as well. So let's look at some rough ideas about budget and pricing and things that people need to think about. So first of all, if you're looking at, say, a $2,000 budget, you could be getting a high specification Apple Mac or a Windows PC. These are generally great for gaming or professional computing purposes. This is really that high end where you're going to be doing a lot of graphic work, video work, maybe audio work, anything that's sort of in the creative arts. You might be a very serious gamer and you want a really good specified PC. Then that's the sort of money you're going to be spending around the $2,000 mark and more upwards, because you could be getting a big screen, speakers, fast processors, lots of memory, the ability to expand, all these sorts of things that you can get on a high specification machine. Now, when I'm talking about specifications, what I'm meaning is how much storage it has, how fast its brain is, the processor. what sort of color it uses if it's got a monitor built into it, what sort of speakers it uses, how many things you can plug in and what sort of ports you have to plug in. That's what we mean by specifications. Now, if you're looking at about $1,000 mark, 1,000 to 2,000, so you're sort of hitting the mid-range here. So you'd be getting a lower specification Apple Mac. You'd be thinking of the MacBook Airs through to the lower end Apple iMac desktop computers. On the PC side of things, you'd actually be getting a fairly reasonable laptop for that sort of money, to a pretty good laptop indeed, with a desktop computer. On the Windows side of things, desktops and laptops, you're actually sitting in a really good price range to get something that's very good, very expandable, lots of memory, good speed, that sort of thing. So, you know, the Windows computers do actually tend to edge out the Apple gear in that sort of price range. You could also be looking at, if you're, say, a tablet person, you'd be looking at, say, an iPad Pro or the Surface Pro tablets, which are the professional grade tablets where they're designed for designers and scientists and all that sort of stuff, and they're quite high powered for a tablet. So, you know, that's the sort of mid-range where a lot of people will sort of sit if they've got that money and if they can build up the savings. But then you've got the under $1,000 range, and there's actually still a lot of good stuff there, but you get that good stuff the closer you get to $1,000, okay? So, for example, you could get yourself a really good quality iPad up to $1,000, which has got lots of storage on it and possibly even mobile phone connection, what they would call a cellular connection option. So allowing you to have a SIM card in it. You can get a really good quality Android tablet for that amount of money as well. So you're really on a good wicket there for your tablets if you're looking for something. And with the iPads, they go from around $600 up to and beyond the $1,000 mark. So thinking about that, if you're going to get yourself an iPad or an Android tablet, if you're going to get yourself a computer, you'll be getting this is where things get a little bit hazy. And when I say hazy on the Windows side, what you get is at the lower end, you get a use of a number of different types of processors that aren't Intel processors. They're more sort of on the mobile phone side of things, processors, computers that especially on the lower end, under $500, you're looking at really cheap plastic components, older screens, slower processors, not much memory. The sort of computer that would really only be good for looking at basic websites and doing email. You know, you could probably get a basic machine for under that, but even then, you wouldn't have much room to move. Now, if you're moving $500 to the $1,000 mark, then suddenly things open up again. You get a good range of laptops, particularly the Lenovo's are actually quite good at this range. I think they make a really good little quality laptop for about $600 or $700 as well. And you've got the lower lower end of the all-in-one computers, where they've got a screen built in as well as the computer in the back on the Windows side. You're getting sort of the lower end with the smaller screens. But even at that price point, you can still get some gold in there. There is actually little nuggets of gold under $1,000 in terms of computers. So it's actually really important to go out and do some really, little bits of research. I sometimes think that jumping onto Google and just typing in best PC under 1,000 AUD, bang, and doing a little Google search for that. And you'll find lots of little articles and reviews and links to sites that give you more information about PCs, which might be a good price range for that under $1,000. So it is quite interesting that there's quite a lot of variation there. When you're at 2,000 or more, you're up in the big leagues, and you can just have lots and lots and lots, and you can get up into ridiculous pricing. I know with some Windows computers, you can end up spending upwards of around $20,000 on the highest end machines, and you can even go further into $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 with the workstation professional quality Apple Macs, where you are really adding absolutely everything to it. And you know, no one in their right mind would ever want to do that anyway. So really, for most people, $2,000 or less and $500 up is that sweet spot. And then working your way within that. What do I need? Do I need good graphics, or am I just really going to do the basics? If you're going to do the basics, you don't need a very high quality screen. You don't need all that extra stuff. But you also need to think about, what might I want to do with this in the future? So allowing yourself a bit of wriggle room as well. So let's talk about money. Now, how are we going to pay for this? It's what my mother used to say to me as a teenager. You know, she'd look at my grand plans and these things I'd want. How are you going to pay for this? Yeah, that'd bring you back to earth very, very quickly. So how do we want to pay for this? So we could buy new outright, by cash or card. You could even use services such as Afterpay, Hum, Zip, particularly Zip Money, which is over $1,000. So you've got all sorts of different finance options you could look at if you wanted to go that way. I know a lot of people will just save up the money and buy a new device outright, although what they might do is use their tax refund to fund a new machine and then claim some of the cost of it back on tax if they actually ever use it for work. And so there's that thing you could look at as well. Of course, though, do talk to your tax agent in regards to anything regarding taxation. You could lease or rent machines as well. So there's still lots of options to rent a laptop or a desktop computer for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. Often these ones also give you the option to buy at the end of the term. Problem is, you may end up paying for the machine twice over by the time your rental's done. So sometimes it actually might be easier for you to think about whether or not you get a small loan or another way. So think about your finance options as well, and think about how you get your money together, because there could be a way which lets the money work for you. Refurbished machines. Now, this is an interesting one. With refurbished machines, these are usually where they've come back into the manufacturer, where there might have been a faulty part on it and it's been returned at point of sale. And these machines are usually brand new. So what happens is they're taken apart by technicians, they're checked over, any faulty parts are removed and replaced with new ones. Anything that's got wear and tear is replaced as well. And essentially what comes back out of the technician's room is a machine which is basically brand new. It's just got lots of different parts in it. And with those machines, because they're refurbished, they still carry a warranty, generally 90 days on them, and they have a much cheaper price. And some of the manufacturers have refurb stores. I know Apple have a refurb store, Dell have one, Samsung have one. A lot of the manufacturers have refurbished stores. So, and these are online stores, by the way, that actually sell refurbs at retail. They only do them online. But that can be another way to get a fairly good quality computer for a heck of a lot less. And one thing I found recently as well is, funnily enough, eBay, when they're doing sales on eBay. I recently bought a new 3D printer, which is actually half the price of what I would have paid for it at retail. So yeah, definitely have a look around for options for payment. I was one of those people that with my last computer, I bought it outright, which was fantastic. The previous one, I actually bought on a finance deal as well. So there's different ways you can work your money, okay? So price matching, yeah. I love price matching, because why should you let some other retailer rip you off? So many retailers will price match in order to win your sale. You'll need a current catalogue or proof of the current price being offered by a competitor. Smaller stores may not price match, but may offer extras instead. So if you've got, say, the current printed catalogue of JB Hi-Fi, and they're saying we're doing this price on XYZ or computer, you can take that to a competitor, and often competitors will price match. So do check whether or not the competitor or the shop you're going to actually price matches. If they do, then you could be on a really good wicket, and you could essentially get yourself the lower price at a retail store without actually having to go to the guys who are offering the lowest price. One of the interesting things too, as we have on this slide here, is the Apple retail staff are informed by their managers of competitors' pricing at the start of the shift. So if you are going to buy an Apple Mac, and when retail opens again in, was it about 2 weeks' time? When retail opens again, you could go to the Apple store with a, say, JB Hi-Fi catalog, and Apple can price match. for you as well. They still do this. You know, if you don't ask, you don't get. So do ask whether or not the store you're going to does price matching. That way, at least you can get a good price as your competitors. And some stores will see the price matching and even beat that, you know, by 10 or 15% as well. So yeah, definitely look out for bargains and don't be afraid to ask. Yes, ask, because you never know what you might get. Yeah, and if you're going to do this as well, be nice. As well, the nicer you are, the nicer a deal you'll get. That's what I always find. I'm always Mr. Super Nice and friendly, and people go, "Oh, you're so nice. I'll throw in this for you." Oh, okay. Ooh. So yeah, you never know. And yeah, thank you, Tracy. The Apple team are very good and will check competitors' prices as well. That's coming from my internal experience when I worked at Apple Retail. So I know that for personal experience there. So that's a bit of proof. So yeah, if you are looking for Apple gear, you can often actually get the latest Apple gear from Apple for the cheaper prices that the competitors offers. Just ask for price matching. Now, let's start thinking about the nitty gritty, shall we? So what are we using this device for? Okay, what is its purpose? Now, this is one of the eternal questions I get when I go out and visit people and do one-on-one sessions, and they go, "I've got this new tablet that my grandson bought me," you know, and you know, Mrs. Smith is, you know, 92. She's never had technology before in her entire life. She has no idea what she wants to do with the iPad, but she's just been presented with it by her grandchildren because they want her to keep in touch with them. Now, that at that point, that's an interesting conversation. Most people will know what they're going to use a device for. So think about what you want to use it for. If it is just really the basic stuff, then you know you don't really need more than a lower specification computer or tablet. You don't need, again, we're back to the Ferrari versus the Toyota. Sometimes the Toyota is perfectly serviceable, thank you very much. You don't necessarily need the Ferrari or the Bugatti, unless you need the Ferrari or the Bugatti because you actually need it for what you want to do. For most of us, though, we don't need that level of power. What we need is the Toyota or the, you know, our next sort of brand upwards that gives us that mid-strength. So think about that. What are you going to do? If it is just email, checking web pages, you don't need something amazing. But if you are starting to look at lots of video, making home movies, starting to do lots of art, and you think, oh, I wouldn't mind doing a little bit of animation now. How do I use this app or this video app? How do I, you know, play with my photos? You need to start moving upwards in terms of what your machine has. So sometimes there's the argument you could have for allowing a little bit more, a bit of wriggle room to let you grow into your machine if you think you could possibly end up doing more with it than just the basics. Oh yes, and family, now Tracy's just actually giving us a little pointer here that scanning family history photos can take up a lot of space. That is very true. And I'll give you a little pro tip. There's a great little app that Google make called Google Photo Scan. And I know a lot of people use that to do photos of their family, and they take all the old photos because it allows you to do high resolution scans at low file sizes, and it removes any glare from things such as the plastic covers on photo albums or the glass for photos that are under glass. So that's a little pro tip there. If you're wanting to do older photos that are stuck in books or behind glass, Google Photo Scan, it's a great little app that'll run on your phone, your tablet, and it'll let you scan those older photos. It's a great little app, that one. We'll maybe look at that in our photography session later on. So yeah, if it's just the basics, a lower specification machine, not much memory, all that sort of stuff. Now, when I'm talking about things as well, we'll talk about jargon as we go through very shortly. We'll talk a little bit more about that to give you a bit more of an explanation. But yeah, if you are definitely into the creative side, or you're a gamer, maybe you're doing science, you're doing a lot of heavy spreadsheets as well, and word processing, then you need to step your game up. A basic little machine's not going to cut it, because Word and Excel and Docs and so on, all these different word processing and spreadsheet apps do actually need a little bit of power underneath the hood to really get the most out of them. So once you start working with professional applications, think about, you know, okay, maybe that little lower spec machine, I really actually, that's probably not the one for me. I'll consider buying a machine with a bit more grunt, as we could say. Goodness me, to use a very manly word, grunt, under the hood. Goodness me, we're talking about, it's very car-based today. I do apologize, everyone. So size and weight. Now, yeah, do you want it big? Do you want it small? Do you want to fit it in your bag? Do you want to be able to pop it in the backpack and take it with you? Is it just going to sit in the study because that's where it's going to stay? It's really up to you. So when you're thinking about the size of a computer, think about things such as, am I going to get a machine that's got a tower and a screen? Am I getting an all-in-one computer that just has everything into the screen and a keyboard? Am I getting a little laptop instead? What are you thinking about? Because if you're going to get something like a tower or a big screen machine, you need to make sure that where you put it, it should fit comfortably on the desk you're using. And the height of it should also be adjustable as well, so that you can adjust your chair, you can adjust the height of the machine, so that roughly your eye line should be roughly just above the top of the screen. So when you're sitting properly, you also have the right ergonomic considerations as well. So how you're sitting, because one of the things you need to do is make sure that when you're sitting, your arms essentially should be in a right angle. So with your elbow there and your hand resting on the table. So that way you don't actually get stress on your shoulders, on your elbows, or on your wrists, which could cause you issues further down the line. So if it's a big desktop computer, thinking about the size of it, where your chair is going to sit, is your desk adjustable? You know, you can actually get sit-stand desks now, which is fantastic. Press a button and it raises up so you can stand behind it and work. Or press another button again, it lowers back down into place and you can sit, which is even better. Sit-stands are really fantastic for people who work at computers for a very long time, because by standing, you're actually allowing better blood flow through the body and you're actually stopping all sorts of issues that can happen with veins. You should see my varicose veins. They're absolutely terrible. So my next desk will be a sit-stand desk, which allows better blood flow through your legs. Now, if you've got a large laptop and a professional tablet, you're going to be thinking about a backpack or a laptop bag to pop that in order to be able to carry it around, and also for its protection as well, because you really shouldn't have your hardware out and about naked. It should be in some sort of case, okay? If you've got a tablet, a smartphone, or a laptop, definitely put them in a case of some kind. It's going to keep them free of dust and dirt. And I can tell you, having seen many a plasterer's phone come through the Apple store, I've seen phones that have been filthy without cases, and I've also seen how cases can really protect a device as well. So yeah, think about getting yourself a case. If you've got a little laptop or a tablet, they can often be put in your handbag. You know, or if you've got a handbag or a satchel, something like that, that's fairly small, they're perfect. You know, they'll fit in there perfectly fine. If you've, say, got a little mini tablet, they'll often fit in a purse as well. If you've got a big purse, they'll often fit in there, things like that. So, or your man bag. So yeah, the smaller devices can fit perfectly in the smaller spaces, but really everything that you have, you know, think about getting some sort of protection for it, like a case or so on. And with big laptop computers and desktop computers, you can even get cases and covers for them too. Yeah, keep it nice and safe, and think about the size. Is it too big? E.g., I have two screens here on my desk. I have two 27-inch screens. I've got my hanging microphone, I've got a number of lights, and I've got a number of hard drives and other pieces of equipment. And I actually don't have a large enough desk. I'm actually quite squeezed in. So it's actually not very good for my back at the moment. So definitely thinking about making sure that what sort of computer you have, it needs to fit in with the desk that you're using as well, if you're using a desk, or consider the other ergonomics about carrying around the device as well. Now, speed and RAM. Yeah, so how fast are we moving, essentially? And how much memory can we store? How many things can we keep in our brain at once and work on? So a fast computer is a combination of a fast processor, which is the brain, and RAM, which is the short-term memory, and a good hard drive, which is your storage. So when we're talking about processors, you're going to hear this term gigahertz. You'll usually hear an Intel i3, i5, i7, i9. They're sort of the Intel range of chips. You might hear of other names such as Celeron or AMD and so on. They're usually sitting down at the bottom end of the range. But processors themselves, usually the higher the GHz, otherwise known as the gigahertz number, the faster the computer. Most computers these days have processors that a good fast computer should have at least a 2 or a 3 gigahertz processor that it's running at. Lower end computers might have a 1.5 gigahertz processor, and really they can't do very much because it's, think of it like horsepower as well. You know, the higher the gigahertz number, the more horses that are carrying you around, that sort of thing. So yeah, processors are essentially the brain. They do the most of the work, and gigahertz is the speed that they're measured in. We're looking at RAM. Now, RAM is like your own personal short-term memory. So the more short-term memory a computer has, the more that it can work in combination with the processor to actually work its way through problems and think about them, store parts it needs to access later, come back to them and work with them. So RAM. Now, with most basic computers and laptops, 8 gigabytes is the absolutely barest minimum you should use these days. Really, you should have 16, okay? But you can get away with 8 if you're just doing really basic functions. Things get a little bit murky when it comes to laptops and tablets because there really isn't any sort of measurements here that they work with. They still have onboard storage such as their hard drive, and we'll talk about more of that in a moment. But 8 gigs of RAM should be the absolute lowest for a laptop or a computer. 16's great, 32, wow, fantastic. And then anything above that, you're getting into professional computing range where it's really overkill for the rest of us, really, for that sort of thing. So yeah, and as I was saying in the notes here, some workstation professional computers use 128 gigabytes of RAM. You would never need that in your absolute everyday life. I've got 26 gigs of RAM in my Mac, but I do a lot of video work and a lot of processing and creative stuff as well. I need a high specification machine. Your hard drive. Now, hard drives in laptops go anywhere from 64 gigabytes for the really low-end El Cheapo laptops up to 1 terabyte and then 2 or 3 terabytes on the computer as well. The real minimum here should be around 500 if you can. If you are particularly going to be storing photos on your laptop, and again, you need room for your computer to grow, for it to be able to store things that you download, applications that you might actually download to use on your computer as well, all sorts of little things. So I still think 500 is my personal preference for the barest minimum. You'll find there are some very cheap laptops out there that drop you right down to 64 gigs. And I just think, what's the point? You know, you're not going to be able to store very much on there. It's more of a cloud machine. So the larger hard drive, the better if you're doing a lot of things where you're going to be storing stuff, downloading things, creating things. You're going to need a big hard drive to be able to store things onto them. And when you are talking about hard drives, you've got 2 types of hard drives. A standard HDD, which is a platter drive. It's like essentially think of a record. Now think of that record as being magnetic. And the player has a little arm that reads across and reads all the information off this magnetic record. That's your standard hard drives. You can get them up to 10 terabytes in a single go these days. They can be fairly expensive, but the problem with a standard hard drive like that is over time, it will break down. It's got physical parts which will break down over time. The alternative to that sort of hard drive is what's called an SSD. That's a solid state drive. A solid state hard drive essentially just has chips, and there's no moving parts in it at all. And it just means that it's really fast, quick, and easy to access. I have an external SSD by Samsung here. This is a 1 terabyte SSD. It's extremely fast. and allows me to save information to my computer very, very quickly. Having one on the storage for the inside of your computer actually means your computer is going to be a heck of a lot faster when it starts up and does anything, because most computers are slowed down by the actual hard drive. It's the hard drive itself, the old physical hard drives, that slow things down. When it's just a solid state drive where it's just chips, it hasn't got any physical parts it needs to worry about or check through. So you're going essentially from the little local lane onto the autobahn in terms of how fast it runs. Storage, yeah. So, you do have this fixed storage that comes with smartphones, tablets, and many laptops. On many computers, the storage that they have within them is fixed. As I was saying earlier, you've got SSDs and standard magnetic drives. When we come to hard drives, if you want to store things externally on your computer, because I think if you're going to do a lot of photos or videos, I think you're actually better off putting them onto an external drive. Now, they come in two types: desktop drives and portable drives. Desktop drives live with the computer. They stay on a desk. They are plugged into an independent power point, and they get plugged into the back of the computer for the transmission of data. So a desktop drive will also allow you a lot more storage. You can go anywhere from 1, 2 terabytes up to 10 terabytes with a desktop drive, and even more. There's lots of different options for that. They're great for people that want permanent data backups and that do a lot of media or store a lot of media. I have 26 terabytes of storage across 7 hard drives, and I'm running out of room. Yeah, don't laugh at me. As I said, I do a lot of creative work as well, so I do need a bigger hard drive. So lots of movies and videos, you're probably going to need a desktop drive. The portable drives are really great for laptops and tablets, and particularly laptops. They allow you to have that backup of storage on the go, extra storage with you. They'll often pull their power from the laptop itself. So beware that if you are out and about with your laptop and it doesn't have its power cord, make sure you've got it nice and charged up, because the minute you plug that external drive in, it's going to start supping on your battery, which can lower the battery life of your laptop itself. So yes, you can use them, they're great, but the portable drives often fail as well after about 12 to 18 months. They're really quite prone to failure, some of them. So be very careful with the portable standard hard drives with the spinning platter. This is why I like the SSDs, because you can take them with you anywhere, and they're like little tanks for data. They store everything and they keep it safe, and they're nice and fast. Excuse me there. Now, let's think about the environment, where we're putting our computer and what we're doing with it. So, desktop and laptop computers can emit significant amounts of heat. As I was saying, I've got multiple screens and devices in here. Without air conditioning, I think I'd be living inside a greenhouse. It's a very warm place, is mine, with all the devices on, because they all emit heat. So larger computers should be used in a well-ventilated room. If there's anything we've learned from COVID, is the value of well-ventilated rooms and well-ventilated hallways. Anything that's really well-ventilated is going to allow good airflow, which is a lot healthier for you. And it's the same with computers as well. When a computer's got access to good ventilation, it'll dissipate the heat from the computer a lot faster, which allows the computer to run better. So, yeah, try to avoid using a big desktop or a laptop computer on a really hot day, particularly if you don't have air conditioning. If it's 41 degrees outside and you don't have air conditioning, it's probably 38 to 45 inside, which can actually be quite detrimental to some computers. They don't like running in hot conditions, and they will turn themselves off. And some smartphones and tablets will even detect when it's too hot and actually shut themselves down. So yeah, be careful about heat. If you are using a desktop or a laptop computer in the study, make sure there's about 6 inches of space around the device to allow room for the heat to escape. It also gives you a little room to put your accessories and things as well. Older laptops particularly will need a laptop stand or a laptop riser to allow the heat to dissipate from underneath and the sides of the laptop. Older laptops tend to be very, very hot and can run quite hot. Newer machines that have started using the mobile phone chips tend to be a lot cooler. I know someone who's got one of the new Apple M1X laptops, and it's ice cold, which is really surprising for a laptop. But most of them will run hot. So if you do have a laptop and you're going to use it inside, make sure you've got it on a stand, because if you do set it on your knees, you're going to end up finding that you could possibly burn yourself. So cable management's also really important. I feel like such a hypocrite when I say that, because when I look at my space, it looks like an absolute, mess. But cable management is important. Bear with me a second. I'm going to give you an example of something that you should think about. One of the things people don't think about when they buy a computer or device is all the extras that they may possibly need, or the way they need to tidy up things. So I actually print out these little cable clips, and I print them out on my 3D printer, and they're really fantastic for just threading cables through the middle, clipping them down, and it keeps cables together really well. And there's quite a few of these things, and I've printed out quite a few of these with my 3D printer. Cable ties, all sorts of cable management options are really great. You really want to avoid having, a Medusa's nest of cables under or around a machine, because it can actually get dangerous. So when you do set up a machine, and if it's, say, one where you've got lots of different cables, think about cable management and tying them together and running them so that they are nice and safe and not all over the place, because it can actually be a bit of a occupational health and safety nightmare sometimes. So a tip on that one as well. Officeworks is a really good one for getting cable ties, cable management, little cable runners and things like that. The aesthetic. Yeah, the way it looks does actually count. And a lot. It does actually count for a lot. Now, most computers and devices are mainly made in shades of white, grey and metallics. They're quite interesting. Now I've just got a question about the clips. How to use the clips. So with the clips, these ones, I print them up on my 3D printer, but you can get cable ties, which will do just the same sort of thing. And all I do is I just lay the cables through the void here, and then clip it over the top, and it just holds the cables together. Good old cable ties will be just as well. I know someone who actually just uses plastic tape, and what they do is they just do about 3 or 4 turns, and every meter or so along their cables, they just tie them all together with gaffer tape. If you want to, drill it nice and simple, that's the super way to do it. Some people like cable ties, but yeah, all about just keeping them away from everything. So back to our aesthetics. So yeah, your cheaper models are often made with plastic, and the more expensive computers often use aluminium these days. It's very rare to see aluminium on the cheaper model computer. The problem with the El Cheapo models too is that with the plastic, sometimes if the computer gets hot, the plastic will warp, and the body of the laptop will warp and bend out of shape, meaning that the speakers could be impacted, the case can pop off, all sorts of different things like that. So be really careful when it comes to the old cheapo models of computers that are using plastic cases. They often transmit heat as well. Aluminium models tend to dissipate heat better, and they survive a lot more. You can throw a lot more damage at them. You get great bags and covers and even stickers available to enhance the look of your machine, so it matches your decor and personal aesthetic. There's lots of actual sites like Redbubble and Society6 and so on, where you can go and buy, you know, stickers that you can put on your laptop, and they act like essentially like like a skin for it. I do know of a business called Marvelous, where they actually sell stickers for your laptop and your tablet, which make it look like it's actually made out of marble, which is really, really sweet. Many manufacturers are now offering color chassis for their computers, and some offer after-sale options for color enhancement as well. Again, the most recent Apple iMacs are now all coming in different flavors of different colors. Just like the old iMacs used to in the late 90s, Apple's returned back to that, and they're now coloring their computers again. They've been doing that with their smartphones for a while, and now with the tablets. And we're starting to see that from Windows manufacturers as well, where there are laptops that are now coming out in different colors, and you can get a red one if you want, and so on. But yeah, there are companies such as Colorware, which will take a standard computer, you can send it over to them, and they will paint it up in a color or a scheme that you like as well. So lots of options for those of you, who absolutely must have, a purple computer with, yellow polka dots. It can happen. You can, probably get a skin of it. And even if you're clever enough, you can make your own. So which brands do we talk about here? Now, at this point in time, no recommendations, okay? I'm not actually going to give you, yes, you should buy this, or no, you shouldn't, because frankly, everyone's computing life is different and individual to them. So it's really important just to give you the basics and let you work out the rest for yourself. I know that's a bit naughty of me, but I can't personally tell you what to buy. But I'm going to tell you my personal experiences, because I've got knowledge on both. So, do you buy Mac or Windows? So if you're buying a Mac, you'll find that first of all, the computer will be more expensive than other machines, and some people will say they're under-specced when it comes to Windows. That's actually not necessarily true. This is why Apple have been putting out their own chips now, the M1 chips, because they've decided to get out of that comparison game. And the M1 chips are what they've been using in their phones and tablets, essentially, and they're quite powerful machines. So yeah, it's been a really interesting game, that one. So, but Macs do tend to be more expensive. They are much better quality, and they have much better reliability than most Windows computers out there. Really, when you're looking at Windows machines for quality, yeah, you're still getting great quality with Lenovo and Asus and some of those guys, but you do tend to have to pay for it to get that good quality. But if you look after any sort of machine well enough, it will always do well by you. So yeah, those are stereotypes about Macs, by the way. They are more expensive, they are better quality and reliability. That's true, they are stereotypes though. But the thing with Apple Macs, by the way, is you tend to get a better deal on Apple computers if you buy a machine with better specifications and more RAM. You tend to get a much better deal out of it, and it also will last you much longer. My best friend's computer next door is now more than a decade old, and they recently had their hard drive replaced, and now it's back running like it was brand new. So yeah, Mac people, fantastic. Now, my twin brother is a Windows guy. Now, he has a Windows computer, and Windows computers can be cheaper. There's a very wide variation in the quality, the manufacturers that make them, and so you get, we're really El Cheapo box machines up to really gorgeous gaming and high-end machines as well. So there's a really wide variation in the quality there of Windows machines, and that's not really a surprise. Now, the reason for that is that, there's lots of businesses that license Windows computers, so they all have different aesthetics that they're working to. So the problem here is that sometimes Windows machines can be less reliable because there is such a wide variety of Windows computers out there. That means that Microsoft can't always account for every single make of machine when they work with the Windows operating system. So some things may work, some things may not. But you know what? Windows computers, you should be able to pick it up and just go with it. If you've used Windows before, Windows 11 is just out. It's yet another evolution of what you get with Windows. It's still a great little operating system. As I was saying, my twin brother's a Windows guy, so he's obviously doing well and he loves his Windows machines. Again, if you're sort of an arty person, you're probably going to go towards the Mac. If you're more businessy, you're probably going to go towards Windows, but it doesn't really matter whatever way. It's really the machine that fits your budget, fits your aesthetic, fits what you want to do, and the machine that you feel comfortable using. That's really important. You need to feel comfortable. So when it's coming to the mobile side of things, are we looking at Android or iOS? So iOS is the Apple operating system that runs on the iPhones, the iPads, and so on. So with these devices, it's simple and consistent, very easy to use. They're very, very good for seniors, big buttons, the ability to customize the screen for lots of different sizes of text that you can do from the setting screens on iPhones and so on. Really, really safe devices as well. You don't get viruses, you don't have to worry about that sort of stuff. With Android, it's a much more complex phone to use for many people. The screens aren't necessarily as intuitive as you get with Apple devices, but they are really customizable. You can do lots of different customizing on Android phones, like changing backgrounds and all sorts of things to make it much more aesthetically yours. There's lots of different versions of Android out there, and there's lots of different Android devices as well. So there's lots of what we call fragmentation. So for example, your friend's Android phone may look nothing like your Android phone, even though they're meant to be the similar operating systems. So there can be some wide variety, but there is still a sense of unity underneath with Android as well. So yeah, and the thing with Android phones is they're a lot cheaper too. You don't actually have to spend top dollar to get a really good Android smartphone. You can actually get one at a pretty reasonable price as well. Whereas with the iPhones, in order to get a much more decent quality or priced iPhone, you're going to be looking at either the iPhone 7s, 8s, the iPhone SE, and even then you're still spending upwards of $500, $600, $700, $800 for a phone. So yeah, thinking about your branding, but brands are great, but really comes down to what you're going to do with the machine and what you're comfortable with. So let's have a little stop. Okay, and we're actually going to jump on to some sites shortly, and I'm going to take you over to JB's. We're just going to have a little shop around and give you some other little tips about shopping as well. So take a few minutes to consider the following. What are your needs? Okay, so we need to satisfy your needs first. I need a big screen. I need a fast processor. I need lots of storage. Okay, so maybe if you need those needs satisfied, you want a big screen, fast processor, lots of storage. It sounds like you need a desktop computer, possibly an all-in-one machine as well, or a tower machine. Now, what are your wants? The bells and the whistles. They should be satisfied second. Oh, I'd love it if it was red and it had lots of HDMI ports. And maybe I could upgrade it if I want to over time. Those are your wants. Those come second. Think about your budget, your payment, or your finance options. You might say, well, I've got a $1,500 budget, is what I actually have, say, in the bank right now. But I could possibly get a $500 loan on top for me to get something better. Do you want to do that? Can you do that? Think about that aesthetically, and think about whether or not the finance is actually going to be positive or detrimental to you as well. You might just go, look, I've got $1,000 and that's all I want to spend. Then you might think about, right, I want a computer of X amount of dollars worth, and I need X, Y, or Z accessories to go with it. So you might get, say, a laptop or a laptop or a tablet that might be, say, around $700 or $800, and use the last $200 to get accessories for it. So say for a laptop, that might be getting a laptop bag, being able to get an extra hard drive or like a portable drive for it. With a tablet, that might be getting your tablet, and getting a keyboard for it as well, or a nice case as well. So remember, with your budget, not only are you taking in the price of the actual machine you want to buy, think about all the accessories that you want to get with it as well, so that way you're ready to go right from first principles. So do lots of comparisons, by the way. So compare products to determine which of them closely matches your needs, because that's really, really important there. Now, let's talk about making them last. We want our computer to last, so we want to keep it clean as possible. Nice and clean, free of dust, out of heat, that sort of stuff. That'll help a computer last a lot longer. You could use an SSD for your hard drive where possible. It transfers data faster and will last longer due to its lack of moving parts. Yeah, so a computer with an SSD will definitely be a lot safer for you, because it should last longer. A lot of people halfway through a computer's life might remove the current hard drive altogether and have it replaced with an SSD. You suddenly get a real new lease on life on your machine again, and then wham, you're back up and you're running like you were when you first owned it. So ensure your computer is regularly updated. Software and firmware updates can help your hard drive and hardware avoid failures. So yeah, always good to make sure, especially if your manufacturer pops up one and it says there's a firmware update. Those are really important. Firmware is the middleman in computers. Firmware is essentially takes the instructions of the computer and translates them into the electrical pulses that actually makes the hardware work. So yeah, firmware essentially takes the software and turns it into the electricity that makes the hardware work. Whenever you're updating with your firmware, you're essentially trying to make the hardware of your computer work better. Now, ensure your security software is regularly up to date. If you're using antivirus, check it every couple of weeks to see if there's an update, or go into the settings for it and make sure you've got a setting on there if you see it for automatic updates. So it goes and updates itself automatically for you, meaning you don't have to check it. Those things, however, will only work as long as your computer is connected to the internet. Now, back up your data regularly. Shouldn't need to say it, but it's important to do it. Particularly if you've got documents, photos, videos, things that are important, personal, family memories, stuff that's secure, things you really, you are quite worried about, back them up. And by backing up, I mean, copy them onto an external drive or onto a thumb drive, just any other extra sort of storage away from your computer. You can even use a cloud storage service if you like for some of those sorts of things, just to make sure that everything is okay. If you're on an Apple Mac, you could use a hard drive with Apple's Time Machine program. Excuse me again. And every time that computer is plugged in, every time that hard drive is plugged into the computer, your Mac will automatically back up everything that's happened in the last time since it was plugged in. Windows computers use a backup system called File History. So again, you can plug in a hard drive, go into the settings screen on a Windows computer, go to backup and security, and choose File History. And again, that'll start backing up for you too. If you're using a standard hard drive, think about wiping it every 12 months to 2 years so that it's nice and clean and you can load your data back on there again. So a lot of people will use the backup options that come with their computer, and every 2 years completely wipe their computer's hard drive back to nothing and then reinstall everything back onto the freshly cleaned drive. It just really helps the computer to run a little bit faster. It's like putting your files back in the right places. A lot of people would use a defragmenter program to do it as well, but sometimes it's easier to actually just wipe the entire hard drive and load it all back on again, obviously from a backup. Add more RAM when you're purchasing instead of adding it later. That's particularly one for the Macs, because with most Macs these days, you can't add extra RAM later on with some of them. You actually have to buy it when you first get the machine, and they might not necessarily let you upgrade them on some of the newer Mac models these days. So if you're an Apple Mac person, get as much RAM as possible in your machine, as much as you like, particularly if you want to make that machine last longer, then definitely upgrade to as much RAM as you can afford in it. And that's the short-term memory, by the way. The nice thing about PC towers is you can upgrade them as you go along. Because it's a tower, it's essentially a box. You can turn the machine off, take the back or the side off the box, pull out a particular part, unplug it, and then slide in a replacement part, plug it all in together, turn the machine back on, and voila, you've now got a new piece of hardware in your machine. So PC towers can be great for this, that they can be vastly upgradable because you can just unplug something and put it back in again. Apple themselves have just returned to this configuration with their Mac Pro professional machines, where you can slide the entire cover off and then change the parts in it with it as well. That's sort of the ultimate in upgradable computers, is being able to take the cover off, take a part out, put a new part in, voila, you know, if the old part doesn't work, new one does, fantastic. That's great for those people who have that technological nous. For the rest of us, if we're just doing basic stuff, going with the tablet's going to be fine, and you never have to worry about taking things apart. So yeah, with PC towers, you can update them as the device ages. So your hard drive, your graphics cards, sound cards, all that sort of stuff can be very easily replaced. Let's talk about some pro tips here. Okay, so we've got a couple of pro tips for you, things to think about, you know, because some people will try and bamboozle you, you know, which is not fun. Right, so let's think about these. So don't get bamboozled by jargon. Okay, so if you have the sales assistant starts to talking to you about gigahertz and megabytes and terabytes, and you start to get confused about the jargon, back out. Okay, don't let yourself get confused about the jargon. Know what the jargon means before you go in. As we were saying earlier, terabytes is a measurement of memory. Most hard drives should be anywhere between 500 and 2 terabytes. And that's what you use to store things on your computer, is the hard drive. RAM is the short-term memory, how much the computer can actually hold while it processes. RAM is anywhere from 8 gigabytes up to 32 if you're going really nice. Any more than that, you're getting into a very professional machine. Most people will only need about 16. Okay, so yeah, don't get bamboozled by that jargon. Just think about what do you need, okay? If it's just a very basic machine, 8 gigs of RAM, a hard drive that's around 500 gigabytes in size, that sort of thing is perfectly fine for you. Do some research and ask around for advice. Be prepared for conflicting opinions. Yeah, because you might have a friend who's a real techie, and they might go, oh, you should get this. And it's got all these amazing things, and it can do all this sort of stuff. And again, if you're just looking for something to do the email with and check a couple of websites, your friend is asking you to get a Ferrari when again, all you need is a Toyota. So again, be prepared for conflicting advice and find your own way, something that will satisfy you. But to counter that, do listen to what people say and be open to what they say, because you might get told something which actually is really a benefit for you. And suddenly think, oh, that's right, I didn't think about that. Where, you know, such as, oh, what if I get a really big screen? Then how far do I need to sit back from my screen? So yeah, thinking about that sort of stuff as well. Know your budget and stick to it. If you've got X amount of dollars, then spend X amount of dollars. Don't, if you can, avoid going out and getting extra finance just because you want extra Y or Z special feature that you really don't need. Or if you have got a budget and you know that what you want is outside of your budget, think about how do you get the finances to do that. And as long as you're doing, you know, getting that finance in such a way that isn't detrimental to you as well. You know, some people go, oh, I'll just get one of those 3-year interest-free, finance loans. and then they sit back and they wait for the 3 years to come up, and then they start paying it off. And you go, well, now you're just getting hit with interest. If you are going to buy a computer on finance, pay it off as quickly as you can. The faster you pay it off, and particularly if you do it before the interest-free period ends, you will never have to worry, and you'll have a good credit score, because the minute you pay that computer off while it's actually got interest accruing on it, once it's outside the interest-free period, you could be paying off that machine for the rest of your life. So yeah, definitely think about the finance, and think about whether or not it's appropriate for you as well. So Choice PC User, TechCrunch and other sites are great sources of hardware reviews and information. So I'm going to again give you a couple of websites to look at in a few moments. Think about what happens after you buy. Who's going to install the computer? Who's going to support you? Know how to contact your manufacturer or retailer for help. And YouTube videos can be a very great source of help for new users as well. So let's do a little bit of shopping now. I'm going to take you over to Chrome here. Here we go. Let's just find that. Oh, it's on my calendar. How nice. Right, there we go. Let's take you through Chrome. We don't need to see my calendar, so we'll just jump out of there. There we go. So here we are. We've got JB Hi-Fi there right now. We've also got a Google search for best PC under 2000 AUD and buy online with ShopBot, which is the ShopBot comparison site. So for example here, I may want to look at, say, I'm just going to put in the word laptop. Would help if I could spell correctly. Laptop, there we go. Now, I've got the laptops here, and I've got laptops from $599 onwards. So when we're looking at the lower end, you get into things such as the old Intel Pentiums and older processors. What I like to do is I like to sort by price low to high. And then what I do is I now have a look and I go, right, okay, there's lots of things here that have come up. So that's not exactly the best search, Matthew. What do I need to do is I need to then come in and refine it to Windows laptops. There we go. So we're adding the Windows laptops. And what about, do we have anything for Apple? There we go, Apple MacBooks as well. And I update my results. Bang. So here we are, really basics, the most basic machine here, an Asus laptop, 128 gig hard drive. It's got an Intel Celeron machine. So this is really a low-end computer. This is right down the bottom of the barrel here, but it's only got a 14-inch screen. It can do high definition. It's only got 4 gigs of RAM, 128 gig hard drive. So it's really definitely on the lower end of things. This is the sort of computer where you literally would only be doing emails and web browsing with it. Maybe Facebook and chatting on Messenger or something like that, but that's about it. It really is a great little cheap machine for those people who want a really basic little computer. It's only got the Intel Graphics 600, so you're not going to be playing particularly sophisticated games on it. It's really only enough to play video. It's got one HDMI port, one USB A, one USB-C. It's got a basic webcam. Now with a HDMI port, that's the same port that is on the back of your TV that you often run your DVD player or your games console or set-top box through, HDMI. USB-A, which is the standard USB port, which is a rectangular one that most of us would have seen. USB-C is the new one, which looks smaller, like a rounded off rectangular. It's got a little webcam in it. It's got basic Bluetooth. It's got Wi-Fi, and it's using Windows 10. And it's a really basic little machine. It really is probably the bottom of the barrel, essentially. But that still would be good enough to do all the basics, but it would age really quickly. I could see this machine probably being in the bin in about 3 years' time at the very most. So yeah, that probably would be one of those ones where you go, oh my God, I just need a computer now. You know, that sort of thing. Then as you work your way up, you get into $400 mark, you start to get into good little machines, you hit the $700 mark, and then you start to actually get into some pretty good machines with the Lenovo's and the HPs. They're actually pretty good little laptops for Windows machines, those ones. Even the Microsoft Surfaces are really great. And from here on upwards, you start to get really good quality machines. These are all your Microsofts, and I don't really think you hit the Apple stuff until, you know, well and truly over the grand with the MacBook Airs and so on. So yeah, really, you can actually get a pretty good machine under the $1,000, but definitely not under 500. And here we go. And as we go through, we've got some of them are on sale. Lots of different specs here. So there's your Apple laptops, your $14.99 for your first Apple laptop there for a 13-inch screen. So yeah, this one also, by the way, $1,439 for this Lenovo. Let's see what we've got here. So this Lenovo has got a Core i5, an Intel Core i5, which is a fairly, really decent little processor. You know, it's quite fast. It knows what it's doing. It's not top of the range, but it's still pretty good quality. A 15-inch screen, so that's on the diagonal, measuring 15 inches from one top corner to the bottom corner. Full HD, so its resolution is 1080, sorry, is 1920 by 1080, so standard high definition TV. 16 gigs of RAM, so that's good. That's actually a really good amount of RAM in there for a computer of this type. A 512 gig SSD, so there's your 500 gig hard drive, but instead of it being a spinning platter, it's an SSD, so it's actually a solid state drive. So it should actually be fairly zippy. And it's got Bluetooth as well, and an NVIDIA GeForce graphics card. So at this price, you've got a computer which actually would be pretty capable for doing not only all the basic stuff, but with your office technology things and playing some games as well. So it's actually a really good all-round mid-price laptop for something like that. So that's sort of the things you need to be aware of when you're looking at pricing. When we look at getting a computer, though, you've got lots of reviews and things. So we need to think about reviews. Choice PC reviews. There we go. And we could go to Choice Australia, have a lot of honest reviews, and they do a whole lot of reviews here. There we go. And so Choice actually do a fair bit. Do for have a look at those. And PC User. AUD. So if we come into here and we can have a look at options here as well, PC User and Best Australia, TechFast, lots of little options here, best gaming PC under $1,000. So you can get lots and lots of reviews and information. So when it comes to buying a new computer or device, we really need to go back to first principles as to what we're getting and what we're wanting, and what we're going to be using it for. Okay, that's the really most important thing, is to think about those sorts of things right from the start. And if you go that way, it's a good way to get you started. So let's actually just take you back through a little recap of what we've covered today before I take some questions from you. So things to remember, considering your budget and how much you're willing to spend, what are you going to use the device for, how big is it going to be, how heavy is it going to be, because that makes the difference between a machine that's on your desk or a machine that fits in your backpack or even your purse or handbag. How fast do you want this machine to be? So what sort of processor does it have? You know, do you need a really speedy machine or do you not? Storage options, how big is the hard drive internally on the machine? Do you want to add an external hard drive? Or even hard drives? Think about the environment where you're going to be using it. Are you using it inside, outside? Is it going to stay on the desk? Is it going to be in a cold room or a hot room? Thinking about where you're using it so you get the maximum life out of your device as well. And particularly things like as well, using cases and covers to keep it safe from the elements. Think about the aesthetics as well. You know, where's it sitting? Are you sitting properly? Is it sitting on the desk correctly? Is it the right color for, you know, your decor that you want? And all of that sort of aesthetic stuff. Have you got the right desk for it? You know, do you need a sit-stand desk because you need to sit up? You need to stand up instead of sitting, all those sorts of things. So thinking about your price, the more than $2,000, you're getting a very capable high-end machine. For $1,000 to $2,000, you're getting business class machines through to top-end gaming machines. Under $1,000, you're getting the very basic sort of units. From about $500 to $1,000, you're getting a very good quality, low specification machine that you probably need to change in a couple of years. Under $500, you're really getting tat. Okay, the sort of machine that you do email and a couple of basic websites with, and you'll find that you'll need to get a new one inside a year or two. Payments, you can buy them outright. You could lease or rent machines. Remember, there's lots of finance options out there. You could get a refurbished machine. So refurbished machines are one where the manufacturer has taken it back and replaced any defective parts in the machine and cleaned it up and then sold it back again at a much cheaper price with a 3-month warranty. You could do finance such as Afterpay or Zip or Hum. So you could take the device away immediately and pay it off over multiple payments. Remember that many retailers will offer price matching. So if you've got a catalog of the particular company that you are wanting to price match, many stores such as Apple will do price matching, and they'll match their price, and some of them will even beat it by 10 or 15% as well. Think about what you're using the computer for. If you just want email and websites, then maybe a tablet is going to be perfectly fine for you. If you're, you know, a creative, you need to do business work, you need to do gaming, you're going to be looking at a laptop. You're going to be looking at a high top end tablet or a desktop or a laptop computer. Size and weight, if you want something that you can carry around with you, you're going to go looking at a laptop or a tablet. If you want something that just needs to stay on the desk, a larger size laptop or the desktop all in one, or tower computers, what you should consider. Speed and RAM. So the faster a processor is, the brain, the more the computer can do, but it's also limited by the RAM, which is the short-term memory, and a hard drive. So if you've got a fast processor that's between 2 and 4 gigahertz in speed, that's very fast. Minimum of 8 gigabytes of RAM for your computer. 16 is great, 32 is fantastic. Above that, you're getting into serious professional ends. Hard drives, really 512 gigs is what you need as a bare minimum to allow room for photos and documents and things for you to use. And once you move up beyond that, you're wanting to store lots of things, so you're probably using it for work or professional options. Think about whether or not you want to use a external hard drive to store things, and what sort of hard drive you use then, whether or not it's an SSD or a HDD. A HDD is a standard hard drive that's got a metal spinning platter in it, so it's got physical parts. They offer more storage, but they're cheaper. Whereas the SSDs, they only have chips in them, there's no moving parts, they're more expensive, and they have less storage that you get available with them as well. Where are you putting the device? And it's really important you don't put a hot computer in a hot room. That's asking for the computer to fail. Okay, computers don't like heat. They're better off in cooler areas where they are, but not cold. Okay, no icy rooms. Think about your cable management and make sure you've got lots of room around your computer or a nice big desk. Think about your aesthetics. Do you want it colored? Do you want a special case for it as well? You know, does it need to match your decor? And at the same time, thinking about the ergonomics of things as well. So, you know, the desk that you are going to be sitting on, it's not the desk you're sitting on, I should say, the chair you're going to be sitting on, making sure you've got an ergonomic chair that supports your back, gives you a headrest and things like that. So it keeps you free of back pain as well. Are you a brand person? Are you an Apple person already? Then stick with Apple. Are you a Windows person already? Then stick with Apple. Are you ready to make the switch from either to the other? Fantastic, but don't make that switch until you have a better understanding of how that other device works. I've seen other people have gone, oh, I've just decided to make a switch to the Mac. And then they go, I don't know what I'm doing. And they come to me for lessons. And I'm always happy to teach them, but sometimes it's good to know what you're getting into before you skip. The same with Android and iOS as well. They're completely different operating systems. They work very similarly, but one is more complex than the other, one is simpler than the other as well. Again, it's what you are used to. I would give them both a try and see what works for you. You know, have a play around with a friend's machine. So what are your needs? Satisfy your needs first, satisfy your wants second. Think about your budget and your payment options. Compare products and do lots of research as well, which is really helpful. Think about using an SSD for the hard drive. Make sure you update regularly, do your backups, all that sort of stuff.